Jake Morrison stared at the screen in front of him. 3 years he had been in space and nothing like this had ever appeared before. The ship floating in the darkness was not human. It could not be human. The shape was all wrong and the metal looked like it was breathing. He pressed the communication button. "Amy, get up here. Bring Lucas and Helen with you." Within minutes, his 3 best crew members stood beside him on the bridge. Amy Chen was the best pilot he had ever known. Lucas Grant could fix anything that broke. Helen Torres knew more about alien life than anyone else on the ship. "What is that?" Amy whispered. "I don't know," Jake said, "but we're going to find out. The regulations said they should report the discovery first. Wait for orders." But Jake knew that by the time Earth responded, weeks would pass. Whatever this ship was, it might be gone by then. He made his choice. "Suit up. We're going over." 20 minutes later, they floated through the vacuum toward the strange vessel. Up close, it was even more bizarre. The hull shifted colors as they approached, moving from blue to green to purple. Jake reached out and touched it. The surface felt warm, almost alive. "There's an opening," Lucas said, pointing to a doorway that had not been there a moment before. They entered carefully, weapons ready. The interior glowed with soft light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. The walls pulsed gently like a heartbeat. Strange symbols covered every surface, but they moved and changed as Jake watched them. "This technology is incredible," Helen breathed. "It's organic. The ship is alive." They moved deeper into the vessel, following a corridor that curved in impossible ways. Jake's sense of direction told him they should be walking in circles, but they kept finding new rooms. Each one was more strange than the last. Then they found the chamber. It was large and circular with a raised platform in the center. And standing on that platform was a woman. At least she looked like a woman. Her skin shimmered with colors that human skin could never have. Her eyes were completely silver, with no white or pupil visible. She wore clothes made of the same living material as the ship. She looked at them and smiled. Jake raised his weapon, but something stopped him from pointing it at her. She did not look dangerous. She looked sad. "Lower your weapons," he thought to himself. "Let's see what she does first." The woman's smile grew wider. She tilted her head, studying him with those silver eyes. Then she spoke in perfect English with no accent at all. "Your mind isn't as quiet as you think, Commander Morrison." Jake felt his blood run cold. He had not spoken out loud. The thought had stayed in his head. Or so he believed. "You can read minds?" Helen asked, stepping forward despite her fear. The woman nodded. "Yes, my people are telepaths. We hear thoughts the way you hear words. And humans are very loud. Your minds never stop talking. It's actually quite overwhelming." "What are you?" Lucas demanded. "My name is Kira. I am Valen. We have been watching your species for a long time, wondering if you were ready to meet us." She looked sad again. "We hoped you might be able to help us." "Help you with what?" Amy asked. Kira walked down from the platform. As she moved closer, Jake noticed that her feet did not quite touch the floor. She floated, just barely, as if gravity was optional for her. "My people are dying," she said simply. "We have a gift that has become a curse. We can read minds, yes, but we cannot hide our own thoughts. Every Valen can hear every other Valen. We have no privacy, no secrets, no lies. For thousands of years, this made us peaceful and united." "That sounds nice," Helen said. "It was," Kira agreed, "until we met the Kryn." The way she said that name made Jake's skin crawl. There was fear in her voice and something else. Desperation. "The Kryn are also telepaths," Kira continued, "but they learned something terrible. They learned how to lie with their minds. They can make you believe thoughts that are not real. They can reach into your head and change what you think is true. And we have no defense against them." Jake was starting to understand. "Because you can't lie. You've never needed to." "Exactly," Kira said. "We tried to learn. We tried to fight back. But our minds cannot hold 2 different truths at the same time. When we try to lie even to ourselves, it drives us insane. We have watched our own people destroy themselves trying to master deception. But humans can lie," Amy said slowly. "Yes," Kira replied, looking at each of them. "Humans are natural liars. You do it every day, sometimes without even knowing. You tell small lies to be polite. You keep secrets. You say one thing and think another. Your minds can hold contradictions without breaking." Lucas crossed his arms. "So you want us to teach you how to lie?" "More than that," Kira said. "The Kryn are hunting us. They have destroyed most of my people. Those of us who remain are scattered and hiding. They will find us eventually. When they do, they will kill us all, unless we can learn to fight back. And you think humans can help you do that? Jake asked. Kira's silver eyes met his. I know you can. I have been inside your mind, Commander Morrison. Just the surface thoughts, but even those are remarkable. You think about the past while planning for the future. You feel fear and courage at the same time. You doubt yourself while also being confident. Your mind is a chaos of contradictions, and yet you function perfectly well. I'm not sure whether to be insulted or flattered, Jake muttered. Be neither, Kira said. Just understand that what is normal for you is impossible for us. You have evolved to survive without telepathy. That made you suspicious, careful, and deceptive. Those traits are exactly what we need now. Helen stepped closer to Kira. If we help you, what do we get in return?
Knowledge, Kira said.
Technology far beyond what you currently possess. Understanding of the telepathic species that fill this galaxy. And most importantly, allies. Because the Kryn will not stop with us. Once they finish destroying the Valen, they will look for new targets. And humanity with your loud and chaotic minds will be very tempting to them. Jake felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. First contact with an alien species was supposed to be handled by diplomats and scientists. There were protocols, procedures, entire departments dedicated to this moment. But here he was, standing in an alien ship, talking to a telepath who was asking humanity to enter a war they knew nothing about. I need to report this to Earth, he said. Of course, Kira agreed. I will come with you. I will answer any questions your leaders have. I will open my mind completely to your scientists. I have nothing to hide. I cannot hide anything, even if I wanted to. That must be difficult, Amy said softly. It is our nature, Kira replied. We know no other way. But it is also why we need you. You understand privacy. You understand deception. You can teach us what we cannot learn on our own. Jake made his decision. All right. We'll take you back to our ship. But you need to understand something, Kira. Humans don't trust easily, especially when someone can read our minds. I know, she said. I can hear that distrust in all of your thoughts right now. But I can also hear something else. Curiosity, hope, the desire to help. These things are rare in the galaxy, Commander. Most species see others as threats or resources. You see me as someone who needs help. That is why I believe we can work together. As they escorted Kira back to their shuttle, Jake's mind raced with possibilities and concerns. This was bigger than first contact. This was humanity's entry into galactic politics, into conflicts that had been raging for longer than human civilization existed. They were being asked to take sides in a war between telepaths, using weapons they did not understand. But Kira was right about one thing. If the Kryn were as dangerous as she claimed, humanity would face them eventually. Better to face them prepared with allies than alone and ignorant. He activated his communication device. Commander Morrison to Horizon's Edge. Prepare for an important guest. And get me a direct line to Earth Command. They're not going to believe this. Behind him, Kira smiled again. This time there was hope in that smile. Hope that humanity might be the answer her people desperately needed. Admiral Patricia Hayes read the report 3 times. Even then, she could barely believe it. Aliens, real aliens, and they could read minds. She looked up at the video screen where Jake Morrison waited for her response. Behind him, visible through the window, she could see the alien woman, Kira. Even through the camera, those silver eyes were unsettling. You're certain she's telling the truth? Patricia asked. She says she can't lie, Jake replied. And honestly, Admiral, I believe her. Everything she's told us has checked out. The technology on her ship alone proves they're far ahead of us. If they wanted to harm us, they could have done it already. General Marcus Webb, sitting beside Patricia, was less convinced. Or it's a trap. Send one friendly alien to gain our trust, then the rest of them invade. We've seen this trick before in war games. The Valen aren't the threat, Jake insisted. The Kryn are. And according to Kira, they're coming this way whether we help or not. Patricia made her decision. Bring her to Earth. We'll set up a research facility where our people can study her and her ship. If what she's saying is true, we need to understand this threat quickly. 2 weeks later, Kira stood in front of the Earth Defense Council. Politicians, generals, and scientists filled the room. All of them wanted to ask questions. All of them were afraid. Dr. Sophia Lane, a specialist in psychology, spoke first.
Kira, can you hear all of our thoughts right now?
Yes, Kira said, though I'm trying not to listen too closely. Your minds are very loud and very confusing. One of you is thinking about lunch. Another is worried about a sick relative. Someone in the back is thinking about a movie they watched last night. And all of you are afraid of me. The room fell silent. We're not afraid, General Webb said, though his voice suggested otherwise. Kira smiled gently. You just thought about the gun in your desk drawer. You're wondering if it would work against me. The answer is yes, it would. I am not bulletproof. I am just a person, General. A person who can hear thoughts. Tell us about the Kryn, Patricia said, steering the conversation back on track. Kira's expression darkened. They are like us, but twisted. They discovered that telepathy could be weaponized. They learned to project false thoughts into other minds. Imagine someone whispering in your head, telling you that you've already lost the battle, that your friends have betrayed you, that nothing you do matters, and you believe it because the thoughts feel like your own. That's psychological warfare on a level we've never imagined, Sophia said, leaning forward. How do you fight something like that? We couldn't, Kira said simply. That is why we need you. Humans evolved without telepathy. Your minds are structured differently. You have something you call a subconscious, thoughts you hide even from yourselves. You can believe two opposite things at the same time and not go mad. So you want us to teach you how to compartmentalize, Sophia said, understanding dawning. How to hold contradictory thoughts. Yes, Kira confirmed. And we can teach you about telepathy. Together we might create something new, a defense that neither species could develop alone. Over the following months, a new facility was built. They called it Sanctuary. It was hidden in the asteroid belt, far from Earth but close enough to protect. Here humans and Valen worked side by side for the first time. Jake had been given command of the project. He watched as scientists attached monitoring equipment to both human and Valen volunteers. The tests were simple at first. Think of a number, hide a memory, tell a lie while believing it. The humans found it easy. They had been lying their whole lives. Small lies, big lies, lies to others and lies to themselves. It was natural. The Valen struggled. Every attempt to deceive, even in a controlled test, caused them pain. Their minds rejected falsehood like a body rejecting poison. This is harder than we thought, Jake told Kira one evening. They stood in the observation deck watching Earth spin slowly below them. I know, she replied. My people are suffering through the training. But we have no choice. The Kryn are getting closer. We've detected their ships in nearby systems. They're following the trail of refugees. How long do we have? Jake asked. 6 months, maybe less, Jake nodded. He had expected as much. Then we need to change our approach. We're trying to make you human. That won't work. Instead, we need to find what you can do that we can't. The breakthrough came from an unexpected place. Corporal Lisa Martinez was a combat psychologist. Her job was helping soldiers deal with trauma. She volunteered for Sanctuary because she wanted to understand how telepaths handled pain. During a session with Kira, Lisa tried something different. She opened her mind completely, letting Kira feel everything she felt. The grief over her dead brother, the anger at the universe, the determination to keep fighting despite the pain. Kira gasped. You're feeling all of this at once? The sadness and the strength together. Yes, Lisa said. Humans compartmentalize. We put pain in a box so we can keep functioning. We feel it, but we don't let it control us. Show me how, Kira said. Over the next weeks, Lisa taught Kira and other Valen how to create mental compartments, not to hide thoughts, but to organize them, to feel grief without being consumed by it, to be afraid without being paralyzed. It was painful. The Valen were not built for this kind of mental separation. But slowly they adapted. Meanwhile, humans were learning too. A young Valen named Zane was teaching Amy Chen how to sense emotions without reading thoughts. You can't be telepathic, Zane explained. Your brain doesn't have the right structures, but you can learn to feel the shape of thoughts. The emotional color behind words. Amy practiced every day. She started noticing things she had missed before. The tiny pause before someone lied. The tension in a voice that suggested hidden anger. The warmth in a smile that meant genuine happiness. I'm not reading minds, she told Jake excitedly, but I'm reading people better than ever before. It's like learning a new language. That's exactly what it is, Jake replied. We're learning to bridge the gap between telepathic and non-telepathic minds. We're creating something new. As the months passed, The teams at Sanctuary made remarkable progress. Humans and Valen were no longer just working together. They were becoming a unified force. Each species strengthened the other's weaknesses. But time was running out. The warning came on a Tuesday morning. Deep space sensors detected 15 large ships entering the outer edge of the solar system. They were decelerating from faster-than-light travel, heading straight for Earth. The Kryn had arrived. Patricia called an emergency meeting. Jake, Kira, and the top military commanders gathered in the war room. "We're not ready," General Webb said flatly. "We've only been training for a few months. We need more time." "We don't have more time," Jake replied. "We face them now with what we have, or we face them later after they've destroyed everything between here and Earth. What do you recommend?" Patricia asked. Jake looked at Kira. She nodded. They had discussed this possibility many times. "We go out to meet them," Jake said. "We take the Unity and a small fleet. We show them that humanity isn't defenseless. We prove that telepathic warfare can be countered." "That's suicide," Webb protested. "Maybe," Jake admitted. "But if we hide behind Earth's defenses, they'll know we're afraid. And fear is exactly what they use as a weapon. We need to show strength even if we're terrified inside." "Which we will be," Amy added. She had been promoted to pilot the Unity, the first ship designed for mixed human and Valen crews. Patricia studied the faces around the table. She saw fear, yes, but also determination. These people had trained together, learned together, become something new together. If anyone could face the Kryn, it was them. "All right," she said. "We do this. But understand the stakes. If you fail, Earth is next." "No pressure," Jake smiled grimly. "We won't fail, because we have something the Kryn don't expect. We're unpredictable. We're chaotic. We're human. And we're not alone," Kira added, looking at the humans around her. "For the first time in this war, the Valen aren't alone. That changes everything." As the meeting ended and people rushed to prepare, Jake stood at the window looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Kryn were coming. An enemy that could reach into minds and twist thoughts. An enemy that had never been defeated. But they had never faced humanity before. They had never encountered a species that built its entire civilization on the assumption that minds were private, that thoughts could be hidden, that deception was not just possible but necessary for survival. The Kryn were about to learn a hard lesson. In the war of minds, the species that evolved in silence might just have the loudest voice of all. Jake turned from the window. It was time to prepare for battle, a battle unlike any humanity had ever fought. A battle where the weapons were thoughts and the battlefield was consciousness itself. He smiled. Humanity had been preparing for this moment since the first human told the first lie. They just hadn't known it yet. The bridge of the Unity hummed with quiet energy. Jake stood at the center, watching his mixed crew work together. Humans sat beside Valen at every station. It should have looked strange, but somehow it felt right. "Contact in 30 minutes, Amy announced from the pilot's seat. Her hands moved confidently over the controls. Beside her, a Valen named Zane monitored the telepathic spectrum. They worked in perfect harmony. "All ships report ready," said Lieutenant Chris Walsh from Communications. Jake nodded. 30 human ships formed a defensive line behind the Unity. It wasn't much compared to the 15 massive Kryn vessels bearing down on them, but it would have to be enough. "Kira, status?" Jake asked. Kira stood at her station, eyes closed in concentration. "I can feel them now. They're broadcasting confidence. They expect us to surrender or flee. They don't understand why we're here." "Then let's teach them," Jake said. He had spent the last 6 months preparing for this moment. Every member of his crew had been trained in telepathic countermeasures. They knew how to create mental noise, how to project false confidence, how to hide their real thoughts beneath layers of distraction. The Valen crew members had learned something equally valuable. They had learned to doubt, to question, to hold two thoughts at once without their minds breaking. "Incoming communication," Chris announced. "Audio and telepathic. Put it on screen," Jake ordered. The face that appeared made Jake's skin crawl. The Kryn commander looked similar to Kira, but where she had warmth, he had only cold calculation. His silver eyes seemed to look through the screen directly into Jake's mind. "I am Warlord Thane of the Kryn Collective," the alien said. His voice came through the speakers and, Jake realized with discomfort, through his thoughts as well. "You harbor our prey. Surrender the Valen refugees and we will leave your primitive species alone." Resist and we will teach you why no one defies the Kryn. Jake felt pressure building in his head. Thane was trying to force compliance, trying to make Jake want to surrender. It was subtle and terrifying. For a moment, giving up seemed like the logical choice. Then Jake remembered his training. He thought about his childhood home, about breakfast that morning, about a song he heard last week. He filled his mind with noise, with chaos, with everything and nothing at once. The pressure eased. "This is Commander Jake Morrison of the Earth Space Service," Jake said calmly. "The Vaylin are under our protection. You're in human space now. Leave or face the consequences." Thane's expression shifted. Surprise flickered across his features. "Impossible. You resisted? But you're not telepathic. You shouldn't even feel my intrusion." "We've learned a few things," Jake replied. "Humanity is good at learning." He gave the signal. Across the Unity and the fleet behind them, every crew member began executing Protocol Chimera. They had practiced this 1,000 times. Now it was real. The humans thought as loudly and randomly as possible. Memories mixed with imagination, songs blended with mathematical equations, fear and courage, doubt and certainty all broadcast simultaneously. Their minds became storms of contradiction. The Vaylin crew members added their own contribution. They projected organized thoughts into the chaos, but those thoughts were lies, battle plans that made no sense, weapon systems that didn't exist, reinforcements that weren't coming. To the Kryn accustomed to perfect mental clarity, it was like trying to think in the middle of a hurricane. "Their formation is wavering," Sane reported, his eyes still closed. "They're confused. They don't understand what they're hearing." "Execute Protocol Trojan Horse," Jake commanded. This was the dangerous part. Kira and 5 other Vaylin aboard the Unity synchronized their thoughts. They became a single unified mind, something the Kryn would recognize and trust. Then they broadcast a single word directly into the Kryn command network. Doubt. It was subtle, not a shout but a whisper. They made the Kryn crews question their weapons, wonder if their shields were working correctly, second-guess their targeting solutions. Tiny uncertainties inserted into a collective consciousness. For a species that relied on absolute mental unity, doubt was poison. "It's working," Kira gasped. The effort of maintaining the telepathic attack was clearly painful for her. "Their collective is fragmenting. Ships are acting independently." "Amy, take us forward," Jake ordered. "All ships advance but hold fire." The Unity and its escort fleet moved toward the Kryn vessels. But they didn't attack. Instead, they broadcast more chaos, more noise, more contradictions. The Kryn fleet, which should have blown them apart easily, hesitated. Ships moved out of formation. Some turned defensive. Others seemed paralyzed by indecision. "We're getting a response," Chris announced. "They're trying to communicate." "Let them talk," Jake said. Thane's face reappeared, but he looked different now, shaken, uncertain. "What are you doing to us?" "What weapon is this?" "It's not a weapon," Jake replied. "It's just who we are. Humans are chaos, Warlord. We think 10 different things at once. We believe contradictions. We lie to ourselves and somehow still function. And we've taught our Vaylin friends to do the same." "Impossible," Thane insisted, but his voice lacked conviction. "The Vaylin cannot deceive. Their minds are pure. We're pure," Kira said, stepping into view of the screen. "We evolved, Thane. We learned. And we learned from the one species in the galaxy you never expected, a species that built its entire civilization on the idea that thoughts are private. You're Vaylin," Thane said, studying Kira with those silver eyes. "But you're different, corrupted." "Changed," Kira corrected. "Made stronger. And there are thousands more like me. Every Vaylin who trains with humans becomes immune to your attacks." "Your advantage is gone, Thane. The war is over." For a long moment, Thane said nothing. Jake could almost see the calculations running behind those eyes. Could the Kryn defeat this new hybrid force? Maybe, but it would cost them. And for the first time in their history, they faced an enemy they didn't fully understand. "This isn't over," Thane finally said. "We will study you, learn your methods, and we will return." "We'll be ready," Jake promised. The Kryn fleet turned and accelerated away, jumping to faster-than-light travel within minutes. They left as suddenly as they had arrived. The Unity's bridge erupted in cheers. Humans hugged Vaylin. Crew members who had been strangers 6 months ago celebrated like old friends. Jake felt relief wash over him, but also concern. They had won the first battle, but Thane was right. This wasn't over. The Kryn would regroup, adapt, and return. Next time they would be prepared for human chaos. We need to be ready, he told Patricia over the communication link. This bought us time, but not victory. Understood, the Admiral replied. But you've proven something important today, Jake. You've shown that the Kryn can be beaten. Word will spread through the galaxy. Other species will take hope from this. As the Unity turned back toward Earth, Jake stood with Kira at the observation window. The stars looked the same as always, but everything had changed. Thank you, Kira said softly. My people have been running for so long. Today, for the first time, we stood and fought. And we won. We won, Jake corrected. Not humans or Vaylin, we, together. Yes, Kira agreed. Together. That word has new meaning now. We're not just allies, Jake. We're becoming something new. Something the galaxy has never seen before. Jake thought about that. Human intuition combined with Vaylin telepathy. Chaos paired with order. Deception balanced by truth. It shouldn't work, but it did. Over the following weeks, more Vaylin refugees arrived at human space. Each one was welcomed, trained, integrated into the growing hybrid force. Sanctuary expanded from 1 facility to 5, then 10. Humans volunteered in thousands to work alongside the aliens. Something remarkable was happening. The two species weren't just cooperating. They were influencing each other. Humans who spent time with Vaylin became more empathetic, more aware of unspoken communication. Vaylin who worked with humans became more independent, more capable of handling contradiction. They were evolving together. Dr. Sophia Lane documented the changes in her research. Brain scans showed new neural pathways forming in humans who worked closely with Vaylin. The Vaylin showed increased activity in areas of their brains that had been dormant for generations. This is unprecedented, Sophia told Jake during one of their meetings. We're seeing cognitive evolution happening in real time. Not biological evolution, but something faster. Cultural and mental evolution. Is it permanent? Jake asked. We don't know yet, Sophia admitted. But the changes seem stable. People aren't reverting to their old patterns. They're adapting and staying adapted. Jake found that fascinating and slightly terrifying. Humanity was changing. Within a few generations, humans might be fundamentally different from their ancestors, better at reading emotions, more empathetic, more intuitive. But they would also keep their ability to deceive, to compartmentalize, to believe contradictions. Those traits were too deeply embedded in human psychology to disappear. The hybrid of human and Vaylin traits might create something better than either species alone. Or it might create something strange and unpredictable. Time would tell. For now, Jake focused on the practical concerns. Training more crews. Building more ships. Developing better telepathic countermeasures. The Kryn would return. That was certain. And next time they would bring a larger fleet. But humanity wouldn't be alone. The Vaylin stood with them now. And word was spread. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, Jake received intelligence that changed everything. A Vaylin scout ship had discovered a Kryn supply world called Mortis. It was lightly defended, supporting 3 battle fleets that operated in nearby sectors. This is our chance, Captain Amy Chen said, studying the holographic display in the briefing room. She had her own ship now, the Defiant, with a mixed crew of 30 humans and Vaylin. It's deep in their territory, General Webb cautioned. If something goes wrong, we can't get reinforcements there in time. But if we succeed, Jake countered, we disrupt their entire operation in this region. We buy years of breathing room, time to train more crews, build more ships, strengthen our coalition. Admiral Hayes looked at the tactical display. How many ships would you need? 5, Jake said. All hybrid crews, all trained in advanced telepathic warfare. We go in fast, hit the supply depots, and get out before they can respond in force. It's risky, Hayes admitted. But we can't just defend forever. Eventually the Kryn will wear us down. We need to show them that we can strike back. The mission was approved. Jake would lead from the Unity. Amy commanded the Defiant. 3 Chow. Other ships, each with veteran crews, completed the strike force. They departed a week later, jumping into the deep black between stars. The journey took 3 weeks. During that time, something unexpected happened. The mixed crews didn't just work together, they bonded. Jake watched it happen with amazement. Lieutenant Chris Walsh, his communications officer, fell in love with Lyra, a Vaylin telepath. They couldn't communicate the way two Vaylin could, but they found other ways. Chris learned to read Lyra's emotional states. Lyra learned to appreciate Chris's verbal humor. It wasn't just them. Throughout the fleet, friendships formed. Humans and Vaylin shared meals, told stories, played games. Cultural exchange happened naturally, without formal programs or forced integration. "This is what we're really fighting for," Kira told Jake one evening. They stood in the Unity's observation deck, watching the stars stream by. Not just survival, but the right to choose our connections, to form bonds across species. The Kryn would never allow this. They see other species as tools or threats. Nothing more. Humanity used to be the same way, Jake admitted. We fought wars over differences in skin color, religion, nationality. We've done terrible things to each other. But we learned slowly that diversity makes us stronger. And now you're teaching us that lesson, Kira said. The Vaylin were unified, yes, but we were also stagnant. Every mind thinking the same way, no dissent, no new ideas. Working with humans has been uncomfortable for us, but also liberating. We're becoming more than we were. So are we, Jake replied. I can read people better now. Not their thoughts, but their intentions. I pick up on things I would have missed before. Amy calls it enhanced intuition. Convergent evolution, Kira said. We're meeting in the middle. When they arrived at Mortis, Jake was struck by how ordinary it looked. Just another planet with cities and spaceports. No obvious military presence. The Kryn were so confident in their dominance that they didn't bother with heavy defenses. That would be their mistake. All ships, execute Protocol Phantom, Jake ordered. This was a new technique they had developed. The 5 hybrid ships broadcast a telepathic blanket over the area. Not attacking, just creating noise. To any Kryn telepaths in the system, it would seem like random mental static, background thoughts from civilians going about their daily lives. Under cover of that noise, the fleet moved into position around the supply depots. I'm detecting Kryn defenders, Zane reported from his station. 6 ships in orbit, small patrol craft. They're not on alert. Let's keep it that way, Jake said. Kira, are you ready? Kira and her team of Vaylin telepaths closed their eyes. They had practiced this maneuver hundreds of times, but never in actual combat. It required perfect synchronization and absolute commitment. They broadcast a question directly into the minds of every Kryn in the system. Not an attack, just a simple philosophical inquiry. If you can control any mind, are your own thoughts truly yours? It seemed like nothing, just a random thought, the kind that might occur to anyone. But it was crafted carefully, designed to exploit a weakness in the Kryn collective consciousness. The Kryn had spent millennia forcing their thoughts on others. They had never questioned whether their own thoughts were genuine or imposed. The question created a logical loop, a paradox that their minds couldn't easily resolve. Jake watched the Kryn ships on his display. At first nothing happened. Then their formation began to drift. Small course corrections that didn't make sense. Ships moving slightly out of position. It's working, Kira said, strain evident in her voice. They're arguing with each other. Some think their orders are compromised. Others are defending the orders. The collective is fracturing. Phase 2, Jake commanded. The human crew members began broadcasting false information into the telepathic spectrum. Fake sensor readings, imaginary threats, reports of system malfunctions that didn't exist. To the confused Kryn defenders, it felt like their entire reality was becoming unreliable. They couldn't trust their equipment. They couldn't trust their orders. They couldn't even trust their own thoughts. They're firing on each other, Amy reported from the Defiant with disbelief in her voice. 2 ships just exchanged fire. They think each other is the enemy. Jake felt a moment of guilt. They were turning the Kryn's own weapons against them, using telepathy to create paranoia and confusion. It was effective, but it felt wrong somehow. Then he remembered what Kira had told him about Vaylin worlds destroyed by the Kryn. Children driven mad by invasive thoughts. Entire populations reduced to mindless slaves. The guilt faded. All ships, target the supply depots, Jake ordered. Fire when ready. The 5 human ships opened fire with conventional weapons. Missiles and energy beams struck the orbital depots, destroying supplies meant to fuel Kryn military operations. Explosions blossomed in the darkness. The Kryn defenders, still confused and arguing among themselves, barely responded. By the time they figured out what was happening, the human fleet was already withdrawing. "Jump coordinates locked," Amy reported. "All ships ready for FTL." "Execute," Jake commanded. The fleet vanished from Mortis space, leaving behind burning wreckage and thoroughly confused Kryn defenders. The journey back to human space was triumphant. They had struck deep into enemy territory and succeeded without losing a single ship or crew member. More importantly, they had proven that the Kryn were vulnerable. "They'll respond to this," General Webb said during the debriefing, "probably with increased aggression." "Let them," Jake replied. "Every time they attack us, we learn more about how they think. Every battle makes our crews more experienced, and every victory brings more species to our coalition." That last point was proving true. Word of the Mortis raid spread quickly through the galaxy. 3 more species contacted Earth asking to join the alliance against the Kryn. All of them had suffered under Kryn domination. All of them wanted revenge. But Jake was careful about expansion. "We can't just accept everyone," he told Admiral Hayes. "We need to make sure potential allies understand what we're building here. This isn't about replacing the Kryn Empire with a human one. It's about creating a coalition of equals." "Agreed," Hayes said. "We're setting up a council. Representatives from each species will have equal voices. Decisions will be made collectively, not dictated by Earth." It was a radical idea. Most galactic powers operated through domination hierarchies. The strongest species ruled, the weaker ones obeyed. But humanity proposed something different, a true alliance where every member had value. The Kryn found this concept baffling and threatening. Their entire worldview was based on mental domination. The idea that species could cooperate as equals without telepathic control seemed impossible to them. But Jake understood something the Kryn didn't. Humanity's greatest achievements came from collaboration, not domination. Science advanced through shared knowledge. Art flourished through cultural exchange. Even war was won through allied cooperation. The coalition was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not weapons or technology, but an idea. The idea that different species could work together, learn from each other, and become stronger through diversity. As the months passed, the coalition grew. More species joined. More hybrid crews trained at Sanctuary. More ships launched with mixed crews that thought in new ways. The Vaylin were changing too. No longer refugees, they were becoming full partners in the alliance. Their telepathic abilities, combined with human tactical thinking, created command structures that were incredibly efficient, but they retained their essential nature. They still valued truth and transparency. They just learned to balance those values with strategic deception when necessary. Jake thought about this often. Was it wrong to teach a naturally honest species how to lie? Was humanity corrupting the Vaylin? Then he would see Chris and Lyra working together, communicating across the barrier between telepathic and non-telepathic minds. He would watch human and Vaylin crew members sharing meals, laughing at jokes, mourning losses together. No, they weren't corrupting each other. They were completing each other, like two halves of a whole that didn't know they were incomplete until they met. The war with the Kryn was far from over. More. 1 year after first contact with Kira, Jake Morrison stood in the council chamber on Gateway Station. The room was filled with beings from 12 different species. Telepaths and non-telepaths, carbon-based and silicon-based life, species that breathed oxygen and others that breathed methane, all of them working together. It still amazed him sometimes. A year ago, humanity thought they were alone in the universe. Now they were part of something bigger than anyone had imagined. The latest reports show Kryn activity declining in 7 sectors, Ambassador Chen reported. She was Amy's sister, recruited from Earth's diplomatic corps. They're consolidating their forces, pulling back from outlying territories. They're afraid, said Delegate Cora, a representative from the Tharn species. The Tharn were telepathic but had developed natural shields against mental intrusion. They had been resisting the Kryn for decades. For the first time in their history, the Kryn face an enemy they cannot simply dominate with thoughts. Jake listened as the council discussed strategy. It was fascinating how different species approached problems. The Valen looked for consensus and emotional truth. The Tharn analyzed patterns and probabilities. The humans, as always, looked for creative solutions that broke conventional rules. Together, they were formidable. After the meeting, Kira found Jake in the observation deck. It had become their usual meeting place, a quiet spot where they could talk away from the constant activity of the station. "You're troubled," Kira said. She didn't need telepathy to read Jake anymore. They had spent so much time together that she could interpret his body language perfectly. "I'm worried about what we're becoming," Jake admitted. "Humans are changing. Our people who work with telepaths are developing enhanced intuition, better empathy. It's making us better at communication, but we're also losing something, that privacy we evolved with. And the Valen are changing too," Kira said. "We're learning to keep secrets, to hold thoughts private. It goes against everything we were, but it's necessary for survival. Sometimes I wonder if we're betraying our ancestors." "Are we?" Jake asked. Kira considered this. "No, I think we're honoring them. They wanted us to survive, to thrive. If that means changing, then change is honorable. Evolution isn't betrayal, it's adaptation." "When did you become so wise?" Jake asked with a smile. "I learned from humans," Kira replied. "You've been adapting since your species learned to walk upright. You're experts at change." Dr. Sophia Lane had been studying the changes in both species. Her latest report showed remarkable findings. Humans who worked closely with Valen were developing thicker neural pathways in their emotional processing centers. They were becoming more empathetic, more socially aware. The Valen showed equally dramatic changes. They were developing enhanced prefrontal cortex activity, the area associated with planning and decision-making in humans. They were becoming more independent, more capable of individual thought. "We're seeing convergent cognitive evolution," Sophia explained during a presentation to the council. "Both species are adapting toward a middle ground. Humans are becoming more connected. Valen are becoming more individualistic. In a few generations, the differences between our species might be smaller than we think. Is that good or bad?" General Webb asked. "Neither," Sophia said. "It's just different. Change always feels threatening at first, but these adaptations are making both species more capable, more flexible. That's advantageous in a galaxy full of diverse life forms." The real test of the changes came during a rescue mission. A Valen colony ship had been attacked by Kryn raiders in a remote system. The Unity and 3 other coalition ships responded. When they arrived, Jake found a situation more complex than expected. The colony ship was damaged but intact. The Kryn raiders had disabled it rather than destroyed it. That was unusual. Why wouldn't they just blow it up? Amy wondered over the communication channel. "Because they want something," Kira said. Her voice was tight with fear. "They want prisoners. Test subjects. The Kryn are trying to understand how we've changed." Jake made a quick decision. "All ships prepare for boarding action. We're taking that colony ship back." The battle was fierce but short. Coalition forces boarded the colony ship and fought the Kryn raiders in close quarters. It was the first time humans had faced Kryn soldiers directly, without the protection of distance and ship hulls. The Kryn were formidable. They used telepathy as a weapon, projecting fear and confusion directly into human minds. Several coalition soldiers froze, paralyzed by invasive thoughts that convinced them they were already dead. But the training held. Human soldiers learned to create mental noise, to bury their real thoughts under layers of distraction. Valen telepaths countered the Kryn attacks with their own broadcasts, creating telepathic jamming that disrupted enemy coordination. Most importantly, humans and Valen worked together. When a human soldier was overwhelmed by telepathic assault, a Valen partner would shield them mentally. When a Valen was physically threatened, a human would defend them with weapons. They covered each other's weaknesses. The Kryn raiders, unprepared for this level of coordination between telepathic and non-telepathic species, were defeated. Those who could escape fled. The rest surrendered. For the first time, coalition forces had Kryn prisoners. Jake ordered them brought to Gateway Station for questioning. It was a controversial decision. Many species wanted them executed immediately. The Kryn had committed terrible atrocities across the galaxy, but Jake saw an opportunity. "We need to understand them," he told the council. "Not just how they fight, but why. What drives them? What do they fear?" If we understand that, we can end this war without endless bloodshed. The questioning revealed surprising information. The Kryn weren't just conquerors. They were afraid. "We are dying," one prisoner told his interrogators through Kira's translation. "Our telepathic abilities are becoming weaker with each generation. We don't know why. We thought if we dominated other telepathic species, we could learn their secrets, strengthen ourselves. So this whole war," Jake said slowly, "is because you're trying to save your species from extinction?" "Yes," the prisoner confirmed. "The Kryn Collective grows smaller every year. Fewer children are born with strong telepathic abilities. We thought conquest was the answer, that absorbing other species would make us stronger. But it didn't work," Kira said, "because strength doesn't come from domination. It comes from cooperation." The prisoner looked at her with those silver eyes. "You've changed. You're still Valen, but different, stronger. How?" "I learned from humans," Kira said simply. "I learned that being different isn't weakness. That individual thoughts don't threaten collective strength. That diversity makes a society more resilient, not less. This revelation changed everything. The Kryn weren't mindless villains. They were a desperate species using terrible methods to solve a real problem. They were wrong, but they had reasons." Jake proposed something radical to the council. "We should help them." The room erupted. Several delegates shouted in protest. How could they help the species that had caused so much suffering? Jake waited for the noise to die down. "Think about it. The Kryn are dying because their telepathic abilities are weakening, but we've learned how to strengthen telepathic minds through hybrid training. What if we offered to help them?" "They'd never accept," Ambassador Chen said. "Their pride wouldn't allow it." "Then we don't offer directly," Jake suggested. "We create open training facilities. Any telepathic species can attend, including Kryn, no strings attached. No demands for surrender, just an open invitation to learn." The council debated for hours. Finally, they agreed to try. It was a risk, but the potential reward was worth it. If they could solve the Kryn's problem peacefully, the war might end without more death. The first training facility opened 3 months later. It was neutral ground, protected by coalition forces but open to all telepathic species. Human instructors taught techniques for strengthening telepathic abilities through mental discipline and emotional regulation. No Kryn came at first, but slowly, quietly, individual Kryn began to arrive. Not warriors or warlords, but civilians. Parents worried about their children. Scientists seeking answers. They came in secret, risking punishment from their own government. And the techniques worked. Kryn who trained with humans in Valen showed marked improvement in their telepathic abilities. More importantly, they began to change their perspective. One young Kryn named Taryn became close friends with Lieutenant Chris Walsh. They were complete opposites. Taryn could read any mind within range. Chris couldn't read minds at all. But they found common ground in their love of chess. "The game is about thinking ahead," Chris explained as they played. "Predicting your opponent's moves without knowing their thoughts for certain.